Oh, hey. What's up, everybody? Just brushing my beard. You know, you can't really tell. I mean, I don't know. My beard just looks different at different angles, but just a hard bristle brush for every man that has a beard and wants it to look pretty good. A very small bit. Sorry, I'm not talking to the mic. A very small bit of base cream, like beard cream, a little bit, because otherwise it looks super oily. And you just separate it. You separate it from the each side. You almost like part it like this. And you got to run it through a lot. You honestly have to brush the hell out of your beard. Every now and then a conditioner, a beard conditioner, makes a huge fucking difference, in the quality of the look of your beard. Then you could rock a big beard, but not worry about it looking unkept. Yeah, I'm a huge proponent of beard stuff. Beard maintenance. I often get compliments when me and Jill are out about my beard, and it's just, I have good beard genes. I'm not doing anything particularly special. I largely got lucky, but brushing it is fucking critical, man. What's up, everybody? Hope you're great. Happy Saturday. All right, so let's talk about a few things, man. Good morning, brother. So this is a major announcement. Everybody that's ever looked into doing coaching with us, this is a pretty substantial announcement. And that announcement is for all coaching, even the sexual function consults, but of course, 3-month coaching, 6-month coaching, and then performance optimization black. We now have payment options. Yeah, you can pay later. You can effectively pay as time goes on rather than paying the whole coaching fee up front, or in the case of the sexual function consult, the whole consult fee up front. I'll show you really quickly, and then we'll get to questions. All right, so just give me a second to do this. Where are we? It would be... Guess I can't actually get to my website from here, which is weird on the window capture front. Why? Why is that? Well, I suppose you can just do that and change it. Okay, hold on one sec. Let me show you guys what to do here. Oh, so the window capture isn't even showing. Weird, brother. There we go. Okay, cool. So all you would do is any coaching that you want to do. So let's go to the coaching page and show you these new pay later options. So you don't have to pay the whole thing up front for those of you. Some of you would like to do that. I know we book a lot of people who are like, yes, I'd rather pay it all up front, and that's that. But like, say you choose the sexual function consult. It's $7.99. You go to the buy page. You've read everything. You're on board. You want to fix libido and erections, and you go and book it. There's now a message that says pay over time with a firm. Okay, pay over time with a firm. And it says, prefer not to pay the whole $7.99 up front. Select a firm at checkout to view available pay over time options. And you just book the consult. It opens up the cart over here, like your side cart. You can't really see it, but it's just a side cart. You hit checkout. You go to checkout, and once you get down here, you have this option. You could pay it all up front if you'd like, right? Just to get it done, and you don't want it on credit or whatever. But you could use a firm. You could use a firm now. You just select a firm, hit place order, pay over time, and then you'll go through the firm process. A firm has its own effectively credit checking stuff. They might ask you what your income is and stuff like that. But rather than paying any of the coaching programs, not just the sexual function consult, but 3-month coaching, it's $5,000. With a 50% discount, it's $2,500. 6-month coaching is $9,000. With the discount, it's $4,500. But those you could pay over time instead of paying up front. So this is a huge announcement. I've been trying to settle this for a long time, and we're now partnered with both a firm and Stripe to be able to make this happen. So I hope you guys are fucking pumped about that. Those of you that have not wanted to pay coaching and stuff up front, but would rather have the coaching, you can now use a firm and pay over time. All right, so let me get myself bigger here. Klaboop, Clargovit. What's up, everybody? Back for another live stream. Let's get it started, boys. Let's get it started. First, though, let's talk about a couple things. I get, on average, like 5 to 10 email questions a day. And, since I've been talking a lot more about high doses lately, I've been getting the question, can I just high dose and kill my HCG? Because I don't want to have to deal with the estrogen burden with HCG or thinking it might cause an estrogen problem. If I'm going to be dosing 200 a week, I'd rather not dose the HCG so that there's not this extra estrogen burden causing a problem in my protocol. And the answer to that question is yes, you could try killing the HCG, but it often doesn't work out. And the reason it often doesn't work out is you need some estrogen, and the HCG provides that. And at the same time, your testicles are just going to shrink, man. They're going to shrink. For some people, it gets uncomfortable. It starts to hurt. They retract upwards into your pelvis area. I mean, they are completely shutting down. You have then no signal to stimulate the luteinizing hormone, chorionic and gonadotropin receptors in the testes. So they just shrink, man. They just shrink it up. They shrink up, dude. And that there is hard to deal with. Okay, so cosmetically, if you don't give a shit, fine. But if it hurts and they're retracting up into your pelvis, that's a problem. That's a big problem, right? So the best way to approach doing high doses when you really don't love HCG is, okay, number one, try to see if you're one of the rare few that doesn't need to take it. Some people don't, and their balls will shrink, but not significantly. They'll actually be okay. Most people, it shrinks significantly. So what you do is you just find the minimum effective dose. That's all. Here's an example, and this is essentially what I do. 75 IU HCG as needed. Yeah, I dose 250 once a week into the muscle. It's every Tuesday. It's just a 250 milligram injection. I wait 7 days until the next Tuesday. I inject another 250 milligrams. Then as needed, as I see testicular size start to go down a little bit, I just inject about 75 IU of HCG. Now, that could happen every 6 days. It could happen every 8, 9 days. It's usually within that time frame. Basically like once a week-ish, I add a little HCG. And that's essentially all. Would I remove it entirely? No, not unless you want to deal with the consequences of very shrunken balls, and the problems that come along with that. At the same time, if you're dosing a lot of tests, you're going to have a lot of DHT. It will rise over time, so it's not like a major peak. But at the same time, too much DHT with too little estrogen causes sexual dysfunction of its own type, mainly libido loss or loss of lack of good libido. So the HCG kind of acts as a buffer there and provides the estradiol to have libido. Just keep that in mind. Now, bro, regarding erection quality, the answer always with TRT is the more androgens, the better. The more androgens, the better. To a certain threshold, 300, 350, 400 milligrams a week, it's not necessary unless you're running a cycle. Those are cycles, the doses. But the more androgens you have and the higher your peak is, the more the penile tissue is exposed to DHT, which does all manner of intrapenile hemodynamic optimization, which facilitates erections. DHT is the primary driver of that. So it's always about more androgens. Again, at these high doses for me, my erections, although fine at 140 a week, they're better now. They're just more rigid. There's more blood. It's more gets trapped. It's just fucking better. It's better. That's always the answer. Now, of course, you got to factor in the nuance. Estrogen has to be in your range. It's got to be in the right ratio to DHT. All the other things matter. Your frequency has to be right. For a lot of folks, the dose matters. If you just get frequency right, you're 80% there. You're 80% there. Please keep that in mind. Brethren, Jack and Jill, they did go up the hill. They did. I'm considering the Mastering Libido course. So Mastering Libido and Erections on TRT, that's a digital download. It's a PDF. You mean the playbook? That's a playbook. It's a long digital downloadable PDF that shows you everything about the frameworks on how to think about how to dial in TRT as well as protocols with every ester. I can dial in on any ester modality and get decent anabolism and energy, but I've only hit that primal libido a handful of times. The better way, if you're trying to understand how to get primal libido, would be high dose TRT mastery. Yeah, high dose TRT mastery. That is the absolute best way to deal with primal libido. Now, if you don't want a high dose TRT, then get Mastering Libido and Erections, the playbook, because that will show you how to do that too and explain really the framework for how that works, how you can achieve it on any ester. Devin. Okay, does applying testosterone cream daily to the scrotum create a large peak followed by a deep trough a few hours later? Or is it elevation in T and DHT lasts all day like it does when applied elsewhere? Yeah, it's pretty much all day. If you look at the pharmacokinetic studies of scrotal cream, it basically shows us that you peak within 3 to 4 hours on the testosterone. At about hour 6, the DHT peaks. And then in both test and DHT, you stay at that either supraphysiologic or physiologic range for between 8 and 15 hours. But then it starts going downhill. Yeah. I mean, you stay there and then it starts to quickly drop. So by the next morning, maybe I've looked at the bloods 500 times, like on people with cream. They're always a lot lower. So it starts troughing at that point. But, pretty much throughout the day, you're good. Me personally, I start troughing at nighttime, and I can especially feel it between 8 and 11 p.m. I don't usually stay up past 11 p.m., but when I was on cream, I noticed that. That's probably another reason for me. I wanted to just run high doses of cypionate. I was just starting to feel, okay, I feel good on cream. I felt good on cream. Sexual function dialed in. But was I an absolute animal? No, and I wanted to be. Really wanted to be. Okay, John, my bloods are always very high despite medium low dose TRT. Could it be that I don't have enough androgen receptors so serum remains elevated? No, that's not how that works. If the serum is remaining elevated, I mean, look, you have to look at the rest of your numbers. Where's your free test? If your free test is extremely low, that means some of that testosterone is just still bound to SHBG and a little bit to albumin. Your bloods are always high on low dose TRT. It means you're a hyperresponder, essentially. Yeah. If your serum remains elevated and your trough is at 1700, first of all, where is your peak, and how frequently do you inject? Because if you're injecting every 3.5 days and you think that's going to give you a trough, you're wrong. Every 3.5 days does not give you a trough on cypionate, man. It gives you a mild one. Inject every 7 days to get a true trough. That's where you get an actual trough. Currently injecting 500 milligrams carnitine per month. Haven't seen much difference. Can't advise you on that, brother. E2 levels right now, probably 55, 60 is what I would wager. Yeah, they may peak up to, at this stage, it's so hard to tell. I haven't measured it because I haven't needed to look at it. But on the trough, I'm probably sitting around 40, 45. And that's what really matters. That's perfect for sexual function for me. But it can peak up to 65 if it needs to, because I've got fucking loads of androgens. Loads of androgens. I probably stay between 40 and 65 picograms per milliliter. Now, if I dose 250 IU HCG every day or every other day, I think I'd be at 80. I'd be 20 points higher on estradiol. But, I'm in a good place now. I've already proven for me personally, even on somewhat high doses of TRT 175, I can tolerate 42, 43 estradiol, 45 estradiol. But, injecting 250 at once, I can peak higher, but I'm not peaking much higher than 60. And then going back down once I'm clearing estrogen the entire time, and then you've got the trough, which for me is about 500 nanograms per deciliter less than the peak. That's a lot. That's a lot of reduction in everything. So the E2 goes down. That's the whole point of infrequent injections regarding E2. It's one of the reasons they're good for estradiol. Because, yeah, you do get a peak, but you don't get constantly elevated estrogen. Arguably, it's better than lower serum estrogen, but constant steady state estrogen. This is a distinction nobody has made, and I don't know why people aren't using their brains, i.e. other YouTubers about this, using their brains to simply come to that conclusion that if you inject daily and you have steady state of everything, considering estrogen works at the tissue level and the serum is relevant but not as relevant, why haven't people factored in that larger bolus injections with gaps in between within which you can trough gets you less exposure to estradiol? All I'm doing is, this is all obvious to me, but I guess sometimes the obvious isn't obvious to everyone. K-Dog, sup, brother? Been hypogonadal for years. No erections, no libido. That'll do that. Started TRT now. Have great nocturnals and morning wood. Poor libido, no randoms. Where's the bupropion? No. You don't need bupropion for that, or high dose TRT. But yeah, just the right dose, right frequency. So you've got nocturnals and morning wood, and your libido sucks and no random erections. Well, randoms are hard to achieve past a certain age no matter what, based on your penile vasculature. I get them, but I don't get fucking randoms all the time. It's much more of a younger man thing. Yeah, I wouldn't count spontaneous erections as like part of like your criteria for success on a TRT protocol. You can leave those completely out of it. Now, would it be nice to be able to get them? Yeah. I get them, not frequently. You know, they'll be psychogenically induced or touch induced or otherwise. But yeah, you know, I get them. You know, usually on TRT you need a fucking load of androgens to get just spontaneous erections out of nowhere. So I wouldn't judge that as like criteria for success or failure. The libido though is not great. So this is what you have. You have the androgenic threshold crossed for sufficient erection quality. You've got that in check, but libido is not good. That's a central nervous system based thing, but it does have to do with your protocol. So there's a couple different possibilities here. The first of which being your androgens, mainly your DHT, are too high for the estradiol that you have. That would be one possibility. So you look at the blood estradiol and see if it's kind of on the lowish end. Secondarily, are you taking HCG or not? Because HCG tends to fill that gap, mostly via increasing estradiol, but otherwise providing the brain with some steroids, brain steroids, and neurosteroids that aid in sexual function. And then the third possibility, which is probably a lesser of a possibility, is that you've got too much estradiol, which then inhibits libido. But if you had too much estradiol, your erections really wouldn't work. So I would wager it's the former, and that like DHT is countering E2 a little too much. So, you know, either increase HCG dose if you have it, or go to higher dose TRT, so that you've got everything. You know, my peak, because estrogen peaks, androgens peak, my fucking libido is just turned on. I mean, it over the 7-day period, it's great, but it's more intense in days 1 through 4.5. Like day 5 and 6, it's still there, but it's less bothersome. But that, you know, because everything is working together, and I'm getting these massive peaks where the estrogen DHT balance is just that, it's in check. I get both the erections and the libido. And that's something hard that's hard for people to do. They can get one or the other. You know, it's not the easiest art, because it is an art and a science, to get both erections and libido, but it can be done. Different protocols for different folks, but you know, gapped out frequency, high enough dose, you'll have both. You'll have both usually. Wondering if the peak and the trough should be at the set numbers, or are they relative to? Are they relative? I'm not really sure what your question is there, brother. I just can't. I can't quite. The peak and trough shouldn't be set numbers, no, and they should definitely not be the same. They're only the same if your injection frequency is too close together. Again, if you're peaking and troughing around the same numbers, you're probably not injecting once a week. You're injecting every 3 days, every 3.5, every other day, every day. That's where your peak and trough stay roughly the same. You're the man, brother. Thank you, brother. Thanks for doing these lives. Is there a hypothetical optimal ratio of DHT to estrogen on paper? No. Yeah, that's the thing about it. There really isn't. Yeah. I mean, I haven't tried to extrapolate it, because every time I look at it, it can change. And then down the line, the ratio, if I try to reach that ratio with higher doses or lower doses, it's not the same. It's just not the same. And that's probably because your tolerance for estradiol increases as you increase the DHT. So then that ratio that you had at 120 a week is not the same ratio that you'll have, or that will work better for you at 200 a week. Yeah, that's what I've come to learn. At this point, I'm not looking at ratios. I'm looking at total testosterone. Really don't care about free testosterone at the moment. I'm not looking at DHT because my hair is fine. It's honestly fine. Did you ask a previous question, Fitz? Perfect. I appreciate that. I'll go that route instead. By the way, you're the only guy touting prop, and it's fantastic. The dopaminergic effects are unparalleled in my experience. Yeah, absolutely, brother. I mean, I there's other people out there that are saying it sucks. Like, it's like not ideal for TRT. You could fucking make prop work. What's not ideal about it is it can cause post-injection pain. That sucks. And it's harder to find. You got to get at UGL, or you have to find like the select number of clinics in the United States that have prop, which is not many of them. It's just not many. Not many. Big Z Ballers running 150 every 7 days. Hope it works. Well, again, the rules have to apply to these every 7-day protocols. Number one, it has to be enough. It has to be enough test. On that, you're probably peaking at about 1,000 and troughing down to 600, 700. Might not be enough. Who knows? I don't know where you peak, but typically that's how that works. The HCG can't really be dosed super high, because otherwise you're going to, just cause the same problem as any other TRT protocol, which is that estrogen is too high for DHT. So you don't want that, but you can absolutely positively make it work. Here's how you gauge this, dude. If number one, on day 5, 6, and 7, you feel tired and lethargic, and when you're doing physical activity, you're like, dude, I'm run down. It's not enough test for you. Number two, throughout, the only way to gauge if this is enough test is throughout, if you have nocturnal erections. If you do, it's enough test for you. If you don't, it is not. And number three, do you get enough of a peak in estradiol as androgens are peaking, midweek, or I should say day 2 to 4, where your libido fucking is going crazy. And that's how you can, gauge how this is working for you. But I remember you've discussed you were on cream and you were on, so it seems like you've changed a lot of things within the last 2 months. So you got to be careful. If you're going to run this, do nothing for 6 weeks. Run it for 6 weeks, unless at day 5, 6, and 7, you are completely run down, in which case you should go test total testosterone and see where the hell you are at those days. If you're sitting at 300, 400, 150 is not even near enough for you. So you got to see how it works kinetically in your body by looking at the bloods at the peak and trough, if I were you, and then take those principles and apply it. But if you didn't watch the whole high dose TRT mastery video course, watch it, because it explains everything, literally everything. Is aromatization driven by more peaks for total cumulative test? What I think aromatization is driven by, aside from body fat making you more inclined to aromatize marginally more, is it is driven by the consistency, or I should say the continuity of testosterone's availability before it had metabolized into either DHT or estradiol, which means that at steady state, you're likely producing more steady aromatization, and at infrequent injections, because then the test is going down, a lot of it has metabolized. There's a point at which you're really not aromatizing much at all. That's what's so beautiful about it. Imagine having 3 days in your 7-day period where you're really not aromatizing much at all, and how that extrapolates out to the next 8 weeks. That's why it works. If SSRIs, Taurus Universe asks, are the cause of erectile dysfunction and low libido, the underlying problem may be lower dopamine activity. It is not. In that case, testosterone is only an indirect support and not a treatment. Dopamine is not the problem. Yeah, you can take as much Mucuna purines as you want. Hold on, I got to answer Jill real quick. You can take as much cabergoline as you want. You're not going to fix your PSST. You could block serotonin receptors with like fucking cyproheptadine. You could take cholinergic agonists. You can do anything you think you want to the brain. You will never fix your PSST. Yeah. This is, listen, maybe you're early on in your research. Let's see. No, not for now. Let's see. Okay, that should be good. Maybe you're early on in your research regarding your understanding of PSSD, and maybe perhaps stuck in the forums where they're all focusing on the brain, etc., which is like I don't know, red herring, essentially a red herring. They're just going to be focused on the wrong thing forever. So maybe that's just where you are. But this theory has been proposed many times over the years and proven wrong. Just take a dopaminergic and it solves the problem. Take 9-MEBC, which will give you differentiation of dopaminergic neurons, meaning the spawning and creation of new dopaminergic neurons from the ventral tegmental area doesn't cure PSST. Sexual function does not live in your brain. That assumes that sex hormones only have action in your brain. They don't. They have action at the penile vasculature mainly, and then they have action in your brain. They have action in, the entirety of the nervous system, but also at the sex organ level. Wow. The solution to any sexual dysfunction, whether it is caused by a drug or not, is sex hormones. That's it. That's it. Unless you have elevated prolactin, then it would be reducing prolactin. Or unless you've got cardiovascular disease, in which case you're not really going to be able to get an erection if that cardiovascular disease has stiffened the arteries to the point where blood can't flow properly. But no, this has been debunked many times over, and I've proven it in coaching over the years. I've been doing coaching on PSSD for almost a decade, and I explored every single route related to neurology, and none of it worked. You can induce temporary windows with all kinds of supplements, neurotransmitter-based modifying supplement. You can do that. It never sticks because it's not the basis of the problem. You want to modify the neurochemical part of it through hormones, which is what they do. But at the same time, supply the actual physical organs with what they need to recover, namely DHT and nitric oxide for the endothelium and the hemodynamics of your male organ for it to ultimately recover over time. Ride the lightning. Ride the lightning. After 8 years of pinning 3 times, you convinced me to go back to once a week, 200 milligrams. Sweet. If you were fine on 3 times a week, you should have stayed there. But if you're lukewarm and not happy, then yeah, go to once a week. Does blood work stay the same as on injection day? No, blood work will definitely change. Yeah. You can measure it, at various different intervals throughout the effect duration window of that injection. If you want to get the most data, you measure at trough. So before you inject, that'd be the morning before you inject, preferably. You measure at peak of the testosterone, which is day 2.5 leading into day 3, which is kind of hard to do. But if you can get to Quest or LabCorp at like 6 p.m. on day 2, that's as close as you're going to get. Or early morning day 3. And then you measure estradiol sensitive at day 4, which is just about after it peaked or right around the time that estrogen is peaking. And you also measure estradiol sensitive at trough, which is, day 7. And after that peak in estradiol, it's fucking basically like tanks downhill after that. Those are when you want to get blood if that's what you're asking. Chris Garachi, protocol 300 milligrams test E. Every 8 days. I like that, actually. Do you think getting my blood work done just before the 4th injection at trough is too soon? Yes. Well, actually, because that's a high enough dose, you might be at steady state quicker. Let me just see what the plotter says. Was that 300, 262 a week? So what you're doing, you're just doing that every 8 days? Let's go to plotter, bro, and see. Let's see what it does. 262. Oh, right. 300. Okay. We're just doing 300. Testosterone test E. And that's every 8 days. We'll do a 12-week cycle and see. So you've done 4 injections. 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is technically where you roughly are. Now, again, you might vary between 1 and 500 nanograms per deciliter of what this total is. But your peak here is 1978, it looks like. And then your ultimate peak is 2033. And then I think you even peak a little higher here, 2040. Okay, so you are 1 injection away from being steady state. So you're close here. You're close. All you go to is 1974, but that next injection, meaning your 5th week injection, is going to take you slightly higher. And then the 6th week injection is going to take you slightly higher than that, and then you'll be at steady state, right? You're here. You're right there. You really need to be, honestly, for the receptor sites and the tissues to get accustomed to your new dose, you really got to be here, which would be on the 6th injection, to determine what it's really doing for you. You can look now, and that will give you useful data, but things are going to change in 2 weeks from now. Both the bloods are going to change marginally, and the effects, though, are going to change. So you could do it for data's sake, but I wouldn't make any decisions. It's not actionable data. No, I don't have a DHT level that I find optimal. Anything above 70 for me is good, but it all really depends on what else is going on. Like I've got to have super physiologic DHT to tolerate estradiol above 50. That's pretty much the bottom line. So there's no running number. It's got to scale upward with estradiol, if you will, which is the backwards way to look at it, but that's just the way to answer your question. And that's essentially it. 500 nanograms per deciliter DHT. I know there are people that say that, but that's usually pretty problematic. It's usually an imbalance, and their libido is shit because all that DHT is blocking estrogen significantly. That's what it does. So what were we looking at here? That was okay, cool. Sorry, I was looking at casino stuff for a second. I had a great month with them. 14. No, not 14. It's I don't even want to tell you guys because you'll think I'm full of fucking shit, but I can actually show you my stat sheet. 16.7 this month. I've had people tell me, you're just lucky or you don't show your losses. Well, neither of those things are true. I'm profoundly unlucky. If I just straight gamble and don't try to play games I understand, I'd fucking get my ass handed to me. Must mean I have a strategy, right? I injected 200 milligrams test cypionate last Monday. Feel way better. Hey, welcome to the club, brother. I have Primo in hand in case I need estrogen control. Erections, mood, energy already better. Thank you so much. Yeah, you're welcome, man. You're welcome. I mean, up here telling the truth, dude. A couple years ago, I did this. Less frequent equals more libido. Higher doses, better for erections. Better for everything if you can make it work. I've already talked about all this, but I can only talk about TRT to like so much. I've got to circle back to stuff I've already said and just say it in a more compelling way. This is the kind of stuff that I've been seeing and coaching and knowing for fucking years, dude. Knowing for years. But it works. It just works. Like you have an androgenic threshold, which now you're crossing finally. So erections are getting better. And energy, just by default, is going to be way better on higher doses of test. The problem is acclimating yourself. The challenge, I should say, is acclimating yourself to higher doses. That's all. Which is a process that takes time. I mean, I couldn't really do it initially. I couldn't. It was my body definitely I had heart palps. No, I had bounding pulse. I think people confuse that with heart palpitations. I had a bounding pulse where I could feel my pulse throughout my whole fucking body. I'd just be laying there and my body be like vibrating. That is your body acclimating to higher energies that you aren't fucking used to, man. The max I ever got to in my whole life was 900 nanograms per deciliter. And that was like at the peak of optimizing it naturally. I've never been at 1,500, 2,000, so it took a while. It took a while, and I had to go up, I had to go down, I had to, I had to fashion lower end TRT protocols for that reason. That worked, but was I a monster? No. Was I okay? Yeah, sure, I was fine. But over time, really, what changed it for me was getting used to the cycle, like running the cycle. I had some side effects initially, but they weren't significant. And then my body just acclimated, it acclimated. I ran sports TRT as I went down from that cycle at 300 a week, then I think 250 a week, and then moved back down to TRT doses. And then now it's like I have no problems. I inject 250 once a week. I don't even feel like different. I just feel good all the time, On days 1, 2, and 3, I have more energy, I would say, but it's not noticeably different than on days 6, 7. Today is Saturday, so I inject Tuesday. Today's day 5. Tomorrow's day 6. Or no, today's day 4, is it? Sunday would be, Tuesday would be. Yeah, so today's day 4. I feel great. I'll feel great tomorrow, though, too, and Monday. But that's what it did. That's the biggest challenge. People have to get used to bolusing test. I had worked out all the acne and all that shit. It just took time over taking TRT for a long time that I just don't have it. My whole where I had it the most was my upper shoulders. Up here, now there's just nothing. I had it on my delts. Now there's just nothing. It just takes time. I know there's not a one size fits all, but do you have a ratio that you like on blood work? No, I do not. And it's because there's not a one size fits all, but at the same time, it's just going to be dependent on you, man. It's going to be dependent on what your body likes. You don't even have to get into the scientific element of ratios with it. You've just got to have enough DHT to support whatever level of estradiol you have. And if you don't, you will have erectile difficulties. That's pretty much the way to look at it, man. Steven Garcia had been taking 20 milligrams a sip every day using cream to experience daily peaks. Yeah, that looks good. Looked solid, but I had shit libido. Recently changed to 200 milligrams once per week, then later 300 milligrams, and now I'm a horny god. I wish I could I'm going to collect this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to collect all the anecdotes from the last 4 months of comments of people being like, all right, maybe Ryan does know what he's talking about. Maybe I should just give this a whirl. Remember, this has nothing to do with me. I'm doing it for anabolism, high doses of TRT and doing the injections infrequently. I can dial in on 150 a week. I can do every other day injections, not daily. I can do 3 times a week. That shit works for me. But as a TRT consultant, I see the people whose protocols and whose sexual function mainly are failing on daily injections. So, to me, when we then move them to enough test in a frequency that works for their body based on how they're metabolizing testosterone and based on the ratios that work for them, it's so evident to me. It's proof. It couldn't be any more objectively clear that libido, erections increase when you find the right dose, the right frequency for people. So this kind of stuff right here, I'm gonna collect everybody's anecdotes and including my clients. I'll just put some case studies together or something. It almost always works. Now, does everybody go on higher doses and have a great time? No, because their blood pressure increases, their hematocrit increases, and these are people that need to get that shit under control. Dude, I'm at the gym after this live stream. I'm getting in my BMW and I'm driving to fucking Planet Fitness. I'm getting on the treadmill, and for between 20 and 25 minutes with intermittent sprints, I'm going to be running on the treadmill. Yesterday, an hour-long walk in Pittsburgh. For an hour, I did cardio. Every day, I do cardio. Every single day. Blood pressure, you got to monitor that. I've been a runner for almost 20 years. I don't have blood pressure problems. So those are the kinds of things that can happen. You've got to get your fucking health straight. So one thing I agree with the other camp about is you got to be healthy to tolerate high doses of test. Thoughts on running TRT in cases where heart damage and arterial calcification exists? You'd want to talk to not just a regular doctor about that. I think you'd want to talk to an experienced cardiologist that has also consumed the literature on testosterone use and its effects on cardiac function. Yeah, because now there's a bunch of new literature which shows us the lower the test you have, the worse your cardiac function is over time, the more likely you are to have heart problems. One that understands the mechanisms. Okay, how would testosterone contribute further to these kinds of things? Well, through increased blood pressure and through skewing of your lipids. As long as you can manage those things, I don't think that this is a problem. And there might be evidence to suggest, not relative to the calcification, but otherwise damage, that TRT is good for it. But you'd want to talk to preferably a cardiologist who understands the TRT literature as well. Because some of them haven't read any of it, and they're just going to tell you, nope, terrible for you. And they're just the same guys that think like eating butter and shit's going to give you a fucking coronary at age 50. What do you think the use of HMG with HCG alongside injectable allopregnanolone? It's a bad idea. None of that is necessary. You're already on TRT, E2, DHT, prolactin in range. Okay. And if you don't have recovery of that, your TRT protocol would be the first place I would look. What's your protocol, dude? Just because estrogen's in range, DHT's in range in this case, prolactin's in range, doesn't mean you'll have good sexual function. I get TRT clients all the time that have 34 estradiol, 800 total test or 900, prolactin at 12. No libido, no erection quality. They need a different protocol. No, I don't. So you know, your protocol is absolutely positively not right for you if you don't have good sexual function on TRT. That's just the bottom line. HMG is not very much better than HCG. These things are not capable of curing you. Test is really the thing capable of getting you in a place where you've got the raw hormonal activity to satisfy your physiologic and endocrinologic needs for sexual function and neurologic needs for sexual function. That's essentially it. Allopregnanolone is not necessary at all to fix sexual dysfunction. That is an internet-born theory, and you want to stay away from all of that shit. All of that shit. Dose 200 milligrams a week of test and like 100 IU of HCG on day 3. Do nothing else. Do the test every 7 days. Then dial in slowly and with small increments from there if you have to, if you're not completely fine there. But then, of course, comes estrogen control if you need it. You've got to understand what high estrogen relative to DHT feels like. Largely, you have libido, but no erections. And all those nuances. When is Mastering Advantage Play coming out? Holy fuck, brother. I don't know. I just, you know, the one thing that I'm afraid to do about discussing it publicly outside of here, you know, is I don't want the casinos I play at to know that I'm an advantage player. I don't want them to know that because they'll find a way to ban my fucking account. You know what I mean? They're probably already fucking suspicious. Dude, I have gone there to pick up $70,000 at a time at a casino in Pittsburgh that I won on the web. I think 50 of it was profit. You know, 20 of it was money I had in there that was in there that I built upon. But I've gone there to pick up. Usually when I win big enough, I tell the application to reserve $10,000 even for me to pick up at the cash cage. It's at Rivers Casino in Pittsburgh. I've done that like 10 or 11 times. Me and Jill go there suited up. I wear a suit. She wears a dress. We get the cash. We go to the high limit room, you know, smoke a cigar or vape and have a drink and chill. We don't play. There's no reason to play in the high limit room. Those games I can't really understand or read. One of them literally out of fucking 40. But yeah, I mean, the thing about what I've learned about the casinos is it is absolutely positively monetizable. Look, I could do consulting for actual gamblers or advantage players. I don't know how I have the brain to figure out what I figure out, but I also have watched, I don't know how many cycles, but hundreds, probably thousands of cycles on when progressives hit in a select set of games, probably about 20-something games, over the course of 11 months. And all that data, by the way, is not in chat. It is not in my notes. It's right fucking here. It's right fucking there. It's right fucking there. So, I don't know. If I decided to do that, it would be I start a business with YouTube content or otherwise that is promoting products that I make that show people how to make money the way I do with the casinos. Now I do lose, but I've reduced my risk to about 90. I've reduced it about 90 something percent. And even then, so there are still things I'm learning. That there was a play that I went for that checked all my boxes for a true advantage play, except a couple, and I went for it anyway. I've done that a few times. Every time I've done that, I lost. So that day, I lost some money. I got my ass handed to me at Wind Creek in Bethlehem because you can't really read land-based machines unless they have progressive structures like a tier 1 through 5 progressive structures or tier 1 through 4. And you watch many cycles of them hit. So you know when they go. These are also non-bonus based games. It's purely line hits and then the progressives. Those are the only games that are actually readable in my opinion. And I didn't play a game like that at Wind Creek in Bethlehem. I was playing, what the fuck was I playing? I was one of the mummy games, but it was one of the newer iterations of it at $50, $75, and $100 bets, where the visual representation of when the bonuses are going to fire off was there, but they just didn't fire off because they go at different bets, typically on the lower bets, which yields less money, and it's not a guarantee just because they're lit. But we were there having fun, and I just continued to press it, thinking, hey, it'll fire, and it ultimately never did. That's why I don't fucking play those games. I lost money that night, and it sucked, and I was like, well, whatever. I made that money back in probably about 2 weeks through Advantage Play, like the stuff that I know. So anyway, I do lose from time to time, even on the web, but my balance sheet is ridiculous. I've made I've made a fucking C-suite level income, just shy of a C-suite level income in just 2026 with Advantage Play. Over 6 figures. I swear to God. So we'll do a business about it. Maybe. Who knows where the future will take me? Might end up in Florida with Jill, where we can't really do that. There's only land casinos. You can't play online there. I appreciate the knowledge you share. Please do your best to ignore the negative feedback with zero constructive criticism. They're probably dealing with issues that have zero to do with you and lashing out. Yeah. I always get, dude, I've been on the web posting content for years. So, I've gotten people attacking me for a while. So I've hardened up to it. It still doesn't feel good when people attack you, man. It doesn't feel good, but especially when you mean well. Like, I've been called a scammer. There are 2 Reddit threads that suggest I'm a scammer. It's like, okay, one of them was never my client. Another one actually was, but was not following my instructions initially. Wanted to get on a call to debate me about it and not follow my instructions further. And I'm like, I already know how these go. It's a non-compliance console. So as I'm gearing up to see what he might do and trying to convince him to listen to me, and then ultimately I would have refunded him. Instead, he does a dispute with PayPal at the time, and then writes a review, like I'm a scammer, dude. I'm here every Saturday, sometimes Friday, multiple times a week. I'm right here. Scammers do not fucking are not right in front of you all the time. But yeah, thanks, bro. I just try to not give it oxygen and realize that people are dealing with their own problems and whatever. Some people are toxic as fuck, and so fucking be it. It's like, all right, fine. It's like people riding your ass on the highway. I'm more inclined these days, rather than to ride their ass back like I used to. I'm more inclined these days to be like, just get the fuck away from me. Just get the fuck away from me. How do you recover the mind-penis connection and sensitivity besides erasure of estrogen and DHT? Mitigating neurosteroids cascades. You don't have to mitigate any neurosteroidal cascades. Is there any stuff like cellular connection, nerve sensitivity? Not really. No. What you're really looking at is dopamine firing correctly, and you've got to modulate that via hormones. You got to modify that via hormones. That's it. I bet you'll temporarily get that connection back by taking a dopaminergic, but it doesn't stay, right? Because you've got to then permanently satisfy that problem via hormones. Yeah. So there is nothing you can take. There's nothing that, because that assumes like there's some neuronal network, from the brain to the penis, which there is, by the way, brain, spinal cord, neurotransmitter receptors in the penis, but which is down. And it's not that it's down, it's that you don't have a steady enough consistent supply of the raw building blocks, i.e. tyrosine, for dopamine, or modulation of those neurotransmitter systems via hormones. That's essentially the bottom line. So, the best way to solve any problem is to look at it the right way. And the way you'll spin your wheels forever is to look at it the wrong way and think you're looking at it the right way, i.e. PSSD as a neurotransmitter-based phenomenon, and you've got to, take fucking shit that modifies neurotransmitters. You will never solve it if you have the wrong idea of what it is. Hope that makes sense, brother. Acclimating is so real. I ran 120 in the beginning, and body took time to acclimate. Moving to 150 to 200 was rough, but now I run 50 prop daily and feel normal. Yeah, it's 350 a week, bro. It's 350 a week. The acclimation just happens, You can force it by just fucking brute forcing it, and you will have side effects, bro. But we're men. Deal with it. Deal with it. It sucks. Some side effects absolutely fucking suck, and maybe you got to get your body healthier, etc. to be able to deal with it. Maybe you have some weird condition. Maybe you took the what, or you got fucking thing itself, both of which can cause you to have strange side effects to shit. I know it's hard, Over time, though, you fix your body, you get used to it. Have you ever seen someone get into an androgen dominant state from overuse of AIs that creates chronic mild E2 symptoms like depression, greasy, itchy skin, bloated emotions? No. I mean, you generally are more androgenic when you take AIs because you're blocking some of the conversion to estrogen, and therefore you're getting more DHT. But depression, itchy skin, those blunted emotions is probably one of the negative effects from overuse of AIs. Yeah. But it's less an androgen dominant state and more an estrogen deficient state is what I would say. The androgen dominance is necessary, but estrogen has to be there to support that level of androgens. These days I'm warming more up to the idea that estrogen does need to be supportive of the androgenic state. Like, I wouldn't really have libido at 2,000 total test and 20 estradiol, just as an example. I need 35, 45 at 2,000. So that's what I think about that. Brother, I've been on the Great Cream for a few years. Do you have a good list of blood work to get? No, Total T, Free T, estradiol sensitive, DHT, prolactin. I just turned 22, been on a clomiphene since I was 19 due to test at 300. My levels have improved, but I guess I'm wondering, would I be better perhaps getting on TRT? This is a hard question because you're young and you've got to make the decision. Do I not risk fertility? Because you could stay fertile on TRT by just using HCG, and you can get fertile down the line by using HCG and FSH. But do you want to make those decisions that early? That's usually the apprehension from the medical community, and I agree with them about that. It's early. At the same time, you have to run a risk-benefit ratio. Is it better to take clomiphene, which blocks estrogen receptors and is arguably unhealthy? Right? We know it causes people to have vision problems because it's blocking estrogen receptors in your eyes. Blocking estrogen receptors elsewhere in your body, cardiac tissue, is this healthy? I think we know it isn't. So you weigh that out. If you need it, like, why are you at 300? Did you have a varicocele? That'd be one reason. Prolactinoma, that'd be another reason. You treat those things and hopefully your test goes back up. But if the strategy is just to if you're not able to make testosterone, no matter what you do, then yeah, TRT. If you just ended up at 300, you could do some lifestyle things to change that, but how effective will it be? I don't know. I honestly, these days it's natural stuff is hard to beat actual hormones. That said, I know somebody who is 19 years old that just got on testosterone in April. Guy fucking loves it. He takes it responsibly. His physique is already changing since April. Was that 4 months, 5 months? Feels great. Is able to finally pack on muscle. And this was a kid who had not a spermatocele, a varicocele. Thick, bulging varicose veins, pain in the testicles. His test was just above hypogonadal. So, if that's one of these situations, yeah, take test. Clear it with a doc, clear it with your parents. But if nobody agrees, do what you think you should do. My hair loss protocol without finasteride is good genes. I do not do anything to my hair at the moment whatsoever. I'm just lucky. Now, is it thinner than it would be otherwise? Yes. Do I have a little bit of gaps? Like you see up here, it's a little gappy. It's pretty much been like that since I've been on TRT, and it hasn't gotten any worse. So I'm not walking away entirely scot-free, but I'm okay. Look at me. I'm okay. I'm all right. I've had a crappy hairline since the age of 25. Yeah, people think like, oh, TRT's destroyed my hairline. Go watch my videos from 10 years ago. Well, I wasn't 25 then, but in my 30s, I still had a shitty hairline. It's just my genes. But my hair itself is good. Finasteride causes sexual dysfunction in a great degree of people that take it, and some of it's very lasting. I would never take that. What do I want to do or need to do if I want to increase my daily test prop to 250 a week? I would move up in like 10 milligram increments. So, what are you at, 30 now? So then you're at 210. Yeah, move 40. 4 times 7 is 28. Then move to 40. So you're doing Oh no, that's 280 a week. 4 times 7, 28. 3 times 7 is 210. 35 milligrams. You're not, I don't know where if you're at, I don't know where you are now, but just increase it by 5 to 10 milligram increments until you reach there. Give it 2 weeks for yourself to adjust after each increment, and you should be fine. Or you could skip the nonsense and just go to 250 and deal with the side effects until your body acclimates, knowing that you might not get any side effects. Who knows? Yeah, I take TTFD in addition to the B complex. Yeah, for glucose metabolism. It's something that I truly swear helps me. Yes. One of my thoughts on nocturnals being 7 to 10 and going away easily, usually not enough DHT, or again, any of the things that go wrong on TRT. Estrogen being a little high versus the DHT, estrogen being a little bit too low versus the DHT. All these things can cause disruptions in nocturnal erections. You know, at the same time, though, considering I think you just switched to 150 every 7 days, I don't know how long you've been on it, so probably not long enough to do anything. And again, I've seen you change your protocols and stuff like that. You need to give things time, brother. If it's Cypionate, you're waiting no less than 6 weeks. No less. So like at week 5, 6, if you're only at week 2 now, you might have nocturnal erections. So you can't really judge this. You can't judge it, man. But in the end, if after 6 weeks goes by and you still don't have them, it's probably not enough testosterone. Not enough testosterone. You know, you'd be hard pressed to find a guy injecting 200 to 250 once a week and they don't have nocturnals most days of the week. It's really hard to find that. Chris says, trying to remember something you said. At 300 milligrams every 8 days, do you think it will help my SHBG rise from previous protocol? Yes. Oh, especially using phenylpropionate? Yeah. Yeah, it'll go up to 20, 25, something like that. I mean, I don't think it'll go substantially high, but yeah, it'll go up there. It'll go up there. It should. Ryan, thanks for the content, brother. After finding the correct protocol, how long does PFS take to heal? Not very long. I mean, I've talked about this as recent as yesterday. If you get the protocol that's right for you, you'll notice benefits right away. And as time goes on and you're on that protocol, things just continue to get better. And it does not take substantially long. It doesn't take substantially long. You just got to have enough androgens. The only length it really takes is waiting for that protocol to do its thing, as you would wait for any protocol to do its thing. For example, a long ester to reach steady state over time. You know, now there's something to say for all the intrapenile optimization it's going to do, the neurological optimization that test does, and there is an actual study, because you can't reference anything that people say like TRT takes time to work. Okay, this is nonsense. There's one paper that shows us that there are improvements over a 6-month period on TRT. I think it showed us that erections, even at the 6-month mark, were better than they were at like the 3-month mark. You know, so there's something to say about that. But largely, when the protocol is right for you, you know it, because the benefits start right away, and they just continue to get better as hopefully you refine or you're on the right protocol forever. The guy who kills legends says, thinking of adding Anavar to 15 milligrams prop daily. Yeah, that's a good idea, because 15 milligrams prop is just not very much protein synthesis added from normal. You look around natty. You look probably a little better than a natty, but it's not very anabolic. What would be the protocol? 12.5 milligrams every day for 4 months, monitoring ApoB and LDL, HDL. Liver enzymes, you should monitor them, but they're probably not going to budge a whole lot. And get a home blood pressure cuff so you can look at whether or not it's raising your blood pressure. It probably won't. Those are the things that I would do. Ride the lightning. Knew me from the nootropics days. Yeah, brother. Yeah, I mean, that's what the reason I've described this before, but I changed to discussing hormones because, first of all, that's where my consulting work had already been going for years prior. It's just more and more people were like, hey, I'm on TRT2. Can you help me with that? You know all this stuff about neurology. I used to test and fucking, honestly changed my life. And the nootropic sphere was, there were people using them responsibly, but there was a lot of people using them to, like, they're using them like as recreational drugs. And they're not meant like to get some effect. You're trying to improve cognition. So it became It's just that started turning me off a lot. And at the same time, we had to evolve as a company. You know, the writing was very much on the wall when 2 of every 5 of my nootropics clients were like, "Hey, I'm on TRT. Can you help me with that too?" I was like, "This is just it. You know, we've got to be talking about this, and we've got to start offering it after we do it for free, effectively." I mean, I did TRT coaching for free for about 1.5 or 2 years before I actually started charging for it. Steven Garcia, everybody throw this man $10, brother. Buying 3 of these, all right? I'm buying 3 of these. I'm buying a hard bristle brush for my beard, and I'm buying me some Zens. Some Zens. I actually don't fucking use Zens, but I do have a vape. This is what is it? 1.5 milligrams total. It's a 0 milligram with a 3 milligram combined, and it's all like a kind of coffee-ish tobacco flavor. I love that thing. I love it mainly at night when Jill and I are like having a margarita or a beer. I don't really smoke it all, during the day or when I wake up or any of that shit. 100 milligrams per pop every 3 days and 1 pump daily test cream. How much test cream? What milligram quantity? Do you think AI is needed? I don't know. I don't know what your effects are. Best time to get labs on once a week. You should explain to me what's happening. Once a week injections would be day 2 and day 3 to see the peak of testosterone, day 4 to see the peak of estradiol, and then trough, which is day of injection, morning before injection, to see trough on testosterone and estradiol. Double N RS1 NY. Thank you for your help and expertise, bro. My thoughts on L-carnitine, forms of L-carnitine like Alcar or propionyl L-carnitine to better androreceptor sensitivity. The literature suggests it may do that. How much will it help? Probably a little bit. And clomiphene did nothing for me at all. Triple my test, but offered no symptom relief. Nearly no symptom relief. That's what it does. It sucks. Steven, out here rocking it, man. You want to be my ambassador, dude? I'll pay you if you can bring in revenue. I mean, I will. I started losing my hair at 25. Female doc told me I was genetic and she could prescribe finasteride, but warned me there was potential for massive sexual dysfunction. Grateful for her. I'm glad that she warned you, right? You know, I think some of the docs are like, they believe the studies. They're so conditioned by the establishment that they exist in that they believe the studies would suggest it's like 2% or 3% or something. This is wonderful. It's wonderful that you have a woman that gives you the right precautions with the medicine that you're taking, or in that case could have taken. That's what they all should do. That's what they all should do. I mean, shouldn't they be aware that Merck was sued and lost for millions of dollars? Shouldn't they be aware of that? I think so. PT141, way better for libido. Dar Fitness, what's up, brother? Hope you're great. All good. Happy Saturday, man. Jay Futrix has got to say, after quitting nicotine, it really does impact libido and erections. Yeah, sadly, I know, brother. Yeah, I've been seeing that for the last 6 months. It was just something I added to my own reservoir of things I can help people with, and I realized, like, especially when we'd have protocols that just everything should have worked, and the erections still weren't up to par. I find out the guy's chain vaping all day with like 6 to 12 milligram per milliliter nicotine. I'm like, dude, that's a fucking vasoconstrict. This whole time you've been vaping all day long? Guy's like, yeah, I love it. I fucking stopped smoking because of vaping. I love vaping. I'm like, we got to figure this out. So he still vapes, but we just changed the concentration, reduced the nicks significantly, and he got his erections back. That's it, dude. That's just it. The boners with reduced nicotine, like that's the thing that, yeah, there's libido modulation with nicotine that isn't particularly positive if you're overdosing it. But the thing I've seen prominently in coaching is people get ragers back and they're thick as fuck. And they stop the nicotine or reduce it a lot and the fucking boners come back, man. It's a beautiful thing. It's a beautiful thing that's the only thing they had to change. It also made me profoundly happy because I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? This person has obviously enough androgens because they're getting nocturnals. And then when I put it all together, I'm like, that's right. Well, they're going 4 hours without vasoconstriction at 2 a.m. or 6 hours. Then they're able to get an erection. The moment they wake up, they're chain vaping and causing constriction of their blood vessels all fucking day. Had a question about zinc. You mentioned that zinc doesn't deplete copper. When I take 50, I have amazing climax, but I'm afraid to take consistently because of copper. Yeah, brother, I think you're just reading too much of that internet stuff, man. No one has ever proven this. No one has ever gotten their copper tested and it was depleted because they took zinc. It's really hard to do that. It's hard to deplete a mineral. Your body keeps a real tight regulation of minerals. Really, really. I mean, you can go without eating foods that contain magnesium for fucking months, and your body will still synthesize magnesium as much as it can from the foods that you eat that may not be magnesium rich, that are actually clearly magnesium deficient. It stays in the right range. It stays in the range. Your body's good at it. So no, zinc doesn't deplete copper. I think there'd be major warnings on zinc supplements, and zinc supplements would become something that people are truly afraid of and therefore warned about on the web if it was depleting copper from your body. It just doesn't make sense. If you tried P5P for months and prolactin is still high, you need to go get an MRI. Yeah. I mean, if you're not dosing kratom, which will increase your prolactin via antagonizing dopamine receptors, then, which would cause high prolactin, then yeah, get an MRI to rule a tumor out. Not saying you have one, but you should get an MRI to rule a tumor out. Because, I mean, that there is like a prolactinoma is the leading cause of elevated prolactin. It's like one of the leading causes. Doesn't mean you have one. You never know. But get an MRI of the brain, and they'll see if there's a fucking hypointense lesion of 4 millimeters or more, 3 millimeters or more. Forget the cutoff for that. And if there is, and you have elevated prolactin, it's almost definitely a prolactinoma. And you could treat it with cabergoline or bromocriptine over the years, or get it surgically removed, and you'll be fine. But go test it. Side effects of cabergoline: dizziness, lightheadedness. And if you take a cumulative amount of 300 to 400 milligrams, which will take you years at prolactinoma doses, it would take you many, many years, and it'd probably be impossible to reach. You run the risk of fibrotic scarring of some cardiac tissue, particularly your valves, and you could run into a bit of valvulopathy, which is reversible to a large extent if you cease use of the drug, but it's not good either way. Not good either way. All right, brothers, I'm going to leave the stream, but one thing I wanted to show you again, those of you that are on here that didn't see this is actually a huge fucking announcement. One of the biggest things that we have ever done regarding coaching. You can now pay later. You can now pay over time. Okay. And this applies to the sexual function consult on the left. This applies to sports TRT, but importantly, the 3-month intensive coaching, the 6-month intensive, and the performance optimization black. I know some of you are looking at like 25,000. I'm not getting that. Yeah, I know it's for highly effective, usually wealthy men that want to 20x their productivity and hormones and all that stuff. But all this other coaching, look, I'll just show you. If you decide you want to do 3 months with me, and you've been looking at the price tag and thinking, hey, that's just not something I'm ready to do. We now have where is this? Why is it not there? That should have been there. Did I not put it on there? Oh yeah. We now have a little section that says, are you ready to start, but you don't want to pay, the $4K? This is 50% off right now, so it'd only be $2,500. But you don't want to pay that up front. When you check out, you can use a firm. You guys remember what a firm is? Have you ever seen a firm on the web? I'm sure a lot of you have. It basically allows you, through quickly just like checking your income and credit check, to pay over time. You could pay $150 a month for 6-month coaching. You just hit a firm. Look at this. Pay over 6 to 36 months. That is the biggest thing that we've done. We partnered with both a firm and Stripe to be able to do this. And I'm excited for it because I think it'll remove the barrier for a lot of people. Some people want to pay for coaching up front. They'd rather just get it done. They don't want anything that they've got to continuously pay or something on their credit or whatever. And then the $7.99 console, a lot of people just opt to pay that up front. But either way, that or the bigger long-term coaching programs, you don't have to pay up front anymore. You can pay over time. So I just wanted to announce that to people because I think a lot of folks have been waiting for that. Kick ass, rock on, enjoy the rest of your day. I'm going to the gym, brother. Going to the gym, and then we're going to eat some yogurt and a banana. Probably take a nap, get with Jill a little later and hang out. And I'll talk to you all this week for content because it's coming. I got a lot to say. Shorts, long form, all of it. Follow me on Instagram if you can, Cortex Labs. Link is down in the description. Follow me on my new YouTube channel about personal development and man shit. Link is also down in the description. Go use the discount codes for products down in the description. Support us so we stay alive. And I'll see you brothers on Monday. Peace!